Hello everyone, welcome back to the gaming table. So today we're going to do, I don't want to call it a demo, I don't want to call it a tutorial. I'm just sharing my learning experience with the Heroes of Normandy, the tactical card game. And what I'm doing is the first scenario, which I'm not sure how to say it, cleaning up Turkeyville. And when you play the game, you're going to pick one of, they have a lot of scenarios that come with it, and if you get the expansion there's even more. Tells you how you set up your deck for the US Army, the German side, what cards deploy on the field, and then what cards go into your reserve deck that you would draw from. For this particular game, I'm not going to use the reserve deck at all. I'm just going to play with what's on the table to kind of show you some of the basic mechanics and how it works out. On the back of the scenario card, then it shows the map and it shows exactly where units get placed. It shows where the objective is. It shows where the deployment zones are for like reinforcements, things like that. Also your victory conditions that are needed. Now this particular game, because I'm just kind of playing some mechanics, there's no victory condition. But if I was playing the full game, I got to take this city. So the Americans got to come in and take this city, and at the end of each turn, if they have a unit in the city, they get 2 victory points, and then every American unit destroyed by the Germans gives the Germans 1 victory point. So you need to get American unit into that town as soon as possible, because this is only 4 turns long. So if the Americans want to win, they got to get into the town, and then they have to hold it for a couple of turns just to generate some victory points. Now, off to the side that you can't see over here very well, I've got the order boards. I've got the German order board here, the American order board here, I've got the turn tracker here. I would say the only thing that I don't like about the turn tracker is it has a little glossy. One thing, I did try to change the lighting a little bit, move this lamp around so it wasn't quite so glary, but I see there's some glare, so I apologize for that. I don't really want to fiddle with it for too long. But with the turn counter, it's not double-sided, it's just German. And I don't know why that bothers me. I didn't think they needed to have 2 counters, one for the American, one for German. I'd prefer if it was just one side was American, one side was German. I've got other counters that are that way, so I might swap that out when I play this. So of all the things I could complain about, I think that's pretty minor. So that's a good sign, right? Minor complaints are good. So with that in mind, over here on the orders board, I also have each side, according to scenario, starts with 3 actions. So this is basically what they can do each turn. And I haven't seen that you really lose these. Like if you play the board game, if you lose certain leaderships, you're going to lose your basically how many orders you can do each turn. But this seems pretty static so far. So we get 3. We also get this like a little extra ability token thing. Directive marker, I think it's called. Make sure I'm calling it the right thing. Yeah, the directive marker. This is basically your bonus to like add a 1+ to an attack roll or to a save roll if you qualify for that. You can have one unit move 1 extra space. You can use this to remove some suppression. Well, yeah, I think you can use that to remove suppression. There's like 5 things you can do with this. These are actually pretty darn handy, and each side is going to start with 1 of these. Now, without showing, like moving the camera too much because it's kind of static today, you know, I'm just gonna play here and explain a little bit of what we're doing. This is also how I learn. So if I'm explaining to you, I sometimes will catch things that don't make sense, look it up. So if you learn something from this, great. If you don't learn anything from this, well, enjoy the game, because I've actually got a couple comments. Apparently not a whole lot of people knew this was coming out, but then the Kickstarter for this was a couple years ago. They kind of struggled with some finances to get this out, but it's here, so you know, hey, let's play it. Okay, so to start the game, the German player did have initiative. So what you got to do is with your action tokens here, your order markers, is you're going to look, and this will be the only time I bring this over, is you're going to decide, do you activate a unit, which activates automatically? Do you order yourself up some recovery marker, or those directive markers? You can get 3 of them per token that you spend. You can manage your cards in hands, which means like you would draw 3 cards from your reserve deck and you could deploy up to 3, but we're not doing that. You can maneuver, which is like you could swap 2 units that are next to each other, or remove 2 suppressed markers. And then right here is a reminder what you can do with the directive marker. You can force a unit to activate, you can force march them, give them a +1 to attack, +1 to saving bonus, or make one of your shots an armor piercing shot. That's important because if you have armored units and you shoot at the armored unit, if your unit doesn't have armor piercing capability, you can only suppress that unit if you hit it. You wouldn't be able to damage it. So if you were attacking, say, with infantry that didn't have an AP value, you could spin a directive marker and boom, you now have an AP shot and you could actually hurt the tank. Alright, so those are some basics you can do there. Now, what I like to do, because I'm starting with the German player, since I only have one of these directive markers, I'm going to spend an action. So I'm going to stick it on the order board under recover 3 directive markers. So I'm going to grab 3 more. Now these don't go away until you spend it. So each time you use one of these markers, oh, I got my colors backwards here, you kind of basically discard it, and you can have up to 6 of those. So right now I'm sitting with 4 of those markers to give me those bonuses. Now what I'm going to do, and I learned this from the book, is activate my general down here, my field commando. So I'm going to put a star on him to activate him. Now that's important because in order to activate other units, they might have to make an activation roll. But because my order has an A for automatic, he's automatically activated. So we'll just activate him. Boom, he's activated. Then he's got an ability that he could potentially activate to 2 adjacent units. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move him first, because a unit can move and fire. So you can either fire and move or move and fire, it doesn't matter. Well, since they don't have an attack, their little dice, oh, you can't see his value that I'm pointing at. Let me just show you real quick. So he doesn't have a combat value, but he's got a leadership value, and there's no range on his leadership value, so he can only activate adjacent people. So since he can move and then use his orders, what I'm going to do is actually move him order over 1, and then I'm going to put activation on that their mortar company, and I'll just put an activation here. I really don't need to activate them immediately, but I'll activate them. They're mostly going to be focusing on defense. Okay, so his activation is done. He did his thing. He moved, he did an action. So what I'm going to do is take one of these markers that says activated, and I'm going to put it, he's done. So your units can only do one thing per phase. So this reminds me I can't activate him again because he's been activated. Now the mortar team over here, I'm going to try and activate them. So they have a 3. So the game comes with 3 dice. You get 2 red dice for attacking, 1 yellow die for making saves or activation rolls. So I'm going to move my dice tower here that I just kind of broke. There we go. Right there. And since I need a 3, you can't see it here if I shift it up. He needs a 3 to activate. I rolled a 5. Good. Now, if I had failed that activation roll, I could have used a directive marker to automatically get him going. So we're lucky there. I'm going to go ahead and move him up. Now I'm moving him up 1 because his attack values are 9 and 9, and they have a little arrow that has a range of 2. And because those 2 attack values are together, that means both attacks can shoot up to 2 hexes, 2 squares away, because that's a mortar. Now the target for that is going to be this rifle company right here, and they are in a mountainous terrain. So if you have your unit here on the map and it's covering up the picture, what they've done is they've put in the corners what that terrain element represents. So there's a town here, so I don't have to constantly pick up the unit to see what terrain they're on. I just look in the corner. So the mountain means they can shoot 1 square further because they're a high elevation. But my mortars can shoot 2 away. So we're going to shoot at this rifle company twice. So we roll our dice. I have to roll a 9 or higher. That's their attack score. So let's see if I hit. Now, here's the thing. I can move and attack. I can move and attack with these guys because they don't have a penalty for that. For example, there's a mortar team over here for the Americans. It's a mortar platoon. They actually have a symbol that says they can't move and fire. So their advantage is that if they fire, if their first round hits, the second round automatically hits. They don't have to roll for it. But they can't move and fire. Over here for the Germans, they can move and fire, but they have to roll for each attack. So they've kind of balanced out a little bit what you can do. So the Germans appear to be a little more mobile. So here we go. First attack roll is a 7. That's a miss. So they're going to attack again with the mortar. That's a 10. That's a hit. So I'm going to grab a hit marker and put it here. Now it's probably hard to see because the camera is so far away. But on this rifle company, they have 2 hit points. They got 2 little skulls, and then they got 2 little markers saying that it's an infantry and a paratroop unit. So I put a hit marker on it because they suffered 1 hit. Luckily, for the Americans, or not realistic, however you want to look at it, there's no degradation of combat ability until the unit is eliminated from the map. If you put some suppressed markers on it, that would have some effect, but they weren't suppressed. So there we go. That unit's done. I still have 1 activation marker left for the German player. Oh, actually, I still got this one here. Like I said, I could move him, but not really, because you move left and right. Vehicles can move diagonally, so I could activate him, but then there's nothing for him to do. I already got some directive markers, so if I was playing with the reinforcement cards, this would be a good time that I would put this down on my reinforcement and draw 3 cards. Or what I could do is go ahead and activate this unit here, might as well, and have them attack the Americans right there. Yeah, do that. Okay, so they have an attack value. Now the reason I'm not rolling for activation is because this order automatically activates them. So they have an attack of 10. Whoops. And that's a 4, so that didn't do anything. Now there is, let me look it up real quick. If you roll doubles on your attack, if the result of the roll is a failure but the player rolled a double, the target unit is marked with a suppressed marker. Oh, okay. So I failed to hit the rifle company, but we did roll doubles. So I'm going to go ahead and put a suppression on them. And it says for suppression, just to make sure I'm doing suppression correctly, because believe it or not, you don't get as suppressed as often as you might think. So with suppression, a unit with 1 or more suppressed markers cannot use a directive marker. Oh, bummer. So they can still do stuff, they just can't use those directive markers. And it says the shooting is down. Let me double check what the shooting penalty is. Normally this is where I could pause the video, but we're not going to pause it. I'm just going to look up what I'm trying to find suppression here. The rules do a pretty good job of showing you where the icons, what everything means, but for suppression, suppressive fire. That's suppressive fire. What do you do if you're suppressed, though? Suppression, suppression, suppression. Hit suppressed. Hit suppressed. Hold on. Oh, it's right here. Big old section right there. Effects of suppressed markers. A unit with 1 or more suppressed markers cannot use a directive marker. Is that it? Apparently that's all there is. Okay, well the symbol has a little symbol saying it's got like fire and reduced, like bullets and reduced. However, I don't see anything else that says suppression does more than just prevent you from using directive markers. Okay, well, easy enough then. Alright. So that would be all of the Germans' activations for that particular turn. Now, one thing, if you were playing with your reinforcements, it does say you can play like a hero and an event card in the first phase, but your opponent could also play a hero card and an event card in the first phase. I had none of that, so I didn't do that. But I finished all my German activations. So now we'll look at the Americans. I'm going to do the same thing with the Americans. Spin an action point and give them 3 directive markers. Love me some directive markers. What I am going to do is then spend one of my action points to recover suppression and get rid of the suppression here, because I might want him to shoot there, return fire. I'm going to activate their Lieutenant Colonel with the last activation. And his command range is actually, he can do 2 units, potentially here. And it has an unlimited range, as long as they're airborne units. So this is an airborne unit. And this is an airborne, yeah, this is an airborne unit. We're going to activate my mortars. Okay, so first I'm going to activate the mortars. So they can again attack up to 2. They can attack diagonally from the, you can only move left and right, up, down kind of a thing. Vehicles can move diagonally. Otherwise infantry can only move, you know, up, down, left, right. But one of the examples in the book shows that you can attack diagonally. So this is 2 squares away. And again, they have a yellow attack and a red attack. The yellow attack means if that first attack hits, the second attack automatically hits. So I could do 2 damage to that unit. It only has 1 hit point. Ooh, but I rolled doubles. Okay, so if you miss, right, we already read, if you miss, you get a suppression on the unit. So they're suppressed. But it says, because just to be nice, if you roll a 1, you get a directive marker for free. Yay! So I now have 5 directive markers for the Americans. And because their first attack missed, I get to roll for the second attack, which is a 9, which is enough to hit, which is enough to do 1 point of damage, which is enough to eliminate the unit. However, this German unit is in an urban area, so they automatically get a save roll from the terrain. They have to roll a 6 on the yellow die. They rolled a 3, so they weren't able to save. So that means they were suppressed and destroyed by the mortars. So I'm going to remove them from the board and then put their markers over here. Oh, not looking good for the Germans. Okay, so mortar team done. That colonel, because he activated some stuff, he used all his orders, he's done. This guy is left to go. He's going to make an activation roll to see if he can do something. Again, he can't move diagonally, but I might be able to position him to move up into the town on the next turn. Maybe. Roll to 5, he can activate. So I have no way to recover health. So we're going to move here, and then maybe I can move up. Obviously, they could move up first, but you know what? I forgot. Because they're on a mountain, they can shoot up to 2 squares away. And it allows them to shoot over obstacles and units that are in the way. So if I wanted, I could shoot down here at these guys who I didn't activate last turn, even though I put a marker on them. So I'll just flip that over to activate it. I could shoot at this group or the mortar team. I'm going to shoot at the mortar team because they have pretty good range. Alright. So their attack value is an 8. Attack! That's a 6. Even if I use a directive marker, that only puts me at 7. So that's a missed attack. I think I will go ahead and leave them there because they have a range of 2 now for shooting. So we'll just say they're done. And that's all the activation for the Americans. So now we would be on turn 2. So what we're going to do is take off these activated markers, just kind of clean up the board. Boom, boom, boom. Done. Okay, 3 markers back here for each person. They don't freely recover directive markers. They have to buy those. That's like extra supplies and whatnot. Okay, now the Americans, oh actually the Germans get to go first because the Americans had it. Let me just double check. That's how I've been playing it, but now that I think about it, I don't think there's an initiative roll. I think you just flip back and forth like the basic game. Okay. Aim the game turn. Second player. New turn starts. Finally, during the turn. Yep. At the end of the second player's phase, advance the turn counter by 1 box, which we did. Oh, I guess Americans are always the first player. So I guess this is just to remind me when it's the German player's turn, because it says that the game will tell you who the first player is. I didn't see anything, so I had to research this a little bit more. I didn't see actually anything about switching initiative. Don't know how I overlooked it. Let me see here. Initiative American. Oh, decide randomly which player deploys their units first. Where to deploy? That's set up. Yeah, okay, so I've just encountered something I'll have to research a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is go with my original plan, which is I'm just going to have alternating who goes first. So I'll have the German player go first, and then next time I do maybe a more in-depth playthrough, we'll have a better grasp of how to do initiative, or someone could tell me who's smart and already figured it out. Okay, so I'm having the German player go first because Americans went first last time. So I'm going to activate... You know what? Didn't I say the Americans were first? And I think I activated the Germans first anyway. I don't know why I did that. I did that... but never mind. I think the Germans did go first last time, didn't they? Yes, they did. Technically, then, the Americans should go first this time. Holy cow. I'm glad you waited till now to tell me that, everyone. But, okay. So, it should be the Americans that go first if I'm alternating who starts a turn. Okay, great. Well, that's fine. I'm going to take an American order. I'm going to activate Lieutenant Vanderhurt. So he's automatically activated. He's going to give a command to this guy. And he's going to give a command to the mortar platoon. Okay, so I'm going to activate the rifle company first. They got to roll a yellow to see if they activate. They do. They rolled a 3. They activate. I'm going to move them up 1. And then I'm going to spend one of their directive markers, put that in the discard, and move them into the city. We now have control of the city with a unit fresh that's got 2 hit points. Since we're here, we're now going to initiate an attack against this Ostrupen company. So we only get 1 attack, and we hit on an 8. And we rolled 12. So we more than hit them. We hit them quite a bit. So that would put 1 point, but they only have 1 hit point, so technically this is going to eliminate that unit now. And they're not in any kind of terrain with any symbols, so that unit's gone. So the American unit has taken the town and wiped out some bad guys. Then the mortar platoon company, they can't move and fire, but I'm going to move them up, or well, over 1, and then force march them. So they got in their vehicles and they drove extra far, so that they can be here to support any other combat. So I'll mark them as activated. Okay, so now I'm going to activate my... You know what? I'm going to go ahead and get some more directive markers. So I'm going to take those and grab off the counter sheet my last unpunched. There. Oops. Little order marker. And now I've got my total of 6 directive markers. Can't have any more. So I spent 1 action for that. Okay, recover 3. And then I'm going to push up with the combat engineers. So I'm going to spend a unit on them, move them up, and then I'm going to go ahead and use one of those new directive markers, and I'm going to move them up 1 more. So we're pushing the attack. And because I activated them directly, I didn't have to put that dice on there. But now that I've moved them twice, oh wait, but they can attack, right? Because they moved one, moved. So they're going to attack real quick before we finish. Because you can move, attack. So they hit on an 8, and they have the armor piercing symbol, and they have an ability that says if they attack somebody, that unit doesn't get a save roll because they're engineers and they're using explosives. But they're attacking a hex with a bunker. Let me reread what the bunker does. I'm sure it does something phenomenal. A unit card in a fortified position box gets a save value of 6+. It is also impossible for any unit card except tanks to enter this box in directive to seize their position. So if I kill them, I can't move into it. A tank could, but infantry can't because it's got wires and all kinds of defensive stuff. But because I'm attacking with an engineer and it makes them defenseless, they won't get to make a save. So these are my flamethrowers, satchel charges, things like that. They rolled a 6, and even with a directive marker would not be enough to hit. So they're going to get marked with activated. And that's my 3 orders. The German player, again, if I was playing with my reinforcement deck, I could draw 3 cards and then deploy some as needed. But the German player is pretty much getting overrun at this point. So what he's going to do is launch an offensive with his... He's going to back up 1. So first of all, let me activate Field Commando guy. And I'm going to put chance for them to activate, chance for them to activate. I'm going to activate my mortar team. So they're going to, well, let me roll to see if they activate. They rolled a 2. They failed. However, I'm going to spin a German directive marker to go ahead and replace that failed roll with a success. So I move them back, and because they can move and attack, they're going to go ahead and attack from that spot into the city. They get 2 attacks, so first attack they need a 9 to hit. They rolled an 11. Now the American player is in that city, so they save on a 6+. I rolled a 4. Even if I spin a directive marker, would not be enough to make the save. So they take a point of damage. 1 more point and they're eliminated. So the mortar team fires their second shot because they've got 2 lumped together there. Oops. I don't think they're going to make it. They rolled a 7. So even with a directive marker they would miss. So that is their activation. We'll see if the Osttruppen Company can do anything. So they rolled a 2. But I'm going to spin a German directive marker to activate them. And what they're going to do is attack the combat engineers. The engineers are in the open. They have no defensive marker on their terrain box. But they only get 1 attack. So they have to roll a 10 to hit. Oh man, I keep rolling outside the box. Now I need to roll my little dice tray. Okay, that's a 7. So even with a directive marker, they couldn't hit. I don't want to retreat because they are in the defense. At least they could defend against them. I don't think it's going to go so well for those guys. So we'll just have them as activated. And that's everybody. Everybody for the German player is activated. So that what he is going to do though is spend 1 token to get 3 directive markers. Because I've spent some. I need to get 1 off their screw. Okay, that would be the end of a turn. That was both sides have activated, so I'm going to take their activation tokens off. Okay, and then I'm going to take the activated tokens off. Hit points stay, there's no suppressions. Okay, so we'll just leave these here to grab. We would advance, so we're just going to leapfrog the turn marker down here. I'm going to say that the German player starts first this time. But there's not a whole lot of options, because again, we're not playing with reinforcements. So he's going to attack with the Osttruppen. Well, what he's going to do first is activate Field Commando of the Comp group, who is then going to give them a potential to activate and the mortars a potential to activate. The mortar team, what I am going to do this though. He can also move, so I'm going to move my Field Commando guy here. So he's done. Let me put activation on him. He did his action and he did a move. And now what I'm going to do is slide over well, let me see if I can activate the mortars. Yellow die. Yes, they activate. So I move them here. And because they can move and fire, they're now going to attack the engineers. Okay. So first roll is a 9. Okay, that hit. The engineers are not in any cover, so they do take one hit. I got damage markers here somewhere. So they take a hit. The mortar team shoots at them again. Now, if you have multiple shots, you can actually shoot at different targets. So I could spread the love around, but I want to take those engineers out. And they rolled an 11. And again, they have no save, and they're not in any kind of cover. So that technically would be another hit. That second hit would be enough to eliminate them. And they had no saves. So way to go, mortar team. Engineers advanced into a hail of mortar fire. That's kind of rough. Alright, then the Osttruppen unit is going to shoot at the Americans. Going to roll to see if they activate. If I can get it into the dice tower. They don't. So German player will spin a directive marker, activate the unit anyway, and then roll 2 dice, needing a 10. It's an 8. Even with a directive marker, it would still be a miss. And they're going to stay there. So they're activated. And that's all the German units. Okay, the American player, he's going to do something. He can actually leave his leader right there, because when I activate him, since he has unlimited range on his ability to activate folks, he's going to activate the mortar platoon and the rifle company. So we're going to see if the mortar platoon can shoot the dudes in there. So do they activate on a 4+? They do. First attack is a 9+ to hit. They roll a 10. So what that means is both of those hits automatically hit in here. But I get to make a bunker save for each hit. So first hit on a 6+, they fail. And just for grins, the second one was also a fail. It only takes 1 hit to eliminate an Osttruppen company. So they're done. And they are good, because they didn't move, so they're going to sit there. Okay, well then we're going to see if we can activate the infantry. Infantry activate on a 3+. They activate, so they're actually going to move over 1. We're going to use one of our swanky directive markers to move into this area. We now own it. It's ours. And they're going to attack the field command unit guy. So they attack with just an 8. Which they rolled a 6, nowhere near being able to hit, so they're done. I have 2 activations left for the American units, so one of them I'm going to use to recover my 2 directive markers I used, and then I'm going to activate this rifle company. So they're going to move up 1. And I'm going to use a directive marker to force march them into the village. Use the directive marker and mark them as activated. And he technically should have gotten activated. And that's everyone. So that's the end of that turn. So I'm going to take these off. You know, I mean, when you aren't using all the activation, all your reserve cards and whatnot, I think the game plays pretty well. I'll give you some thoughts here in just a second, but let me finish this up. That way, if you don't want to hear me talking about my thoughts, you can quit. But if you want to see how this ends, let's finish it up here. Okay, so I'm going to frog leap the Americans to the last turn, because they should go first this time around. It hasn't failed me yet. Activate Mr. Vanderhurt. And then we're going to activate the rifle company. And we're going to activate this rifle company. Yep. That would probably be best. Okay. And then so I put activated on this guy because he's done. Okay. So with this rival company, they're going to attack down here. So again, they hit on an 8+. That is an 8. He is not in any kind of terrain for protection, so he takes 1 point of damage. He does have 2 hit points though, so he's fine. I could move with them, but they like the defense of the bunker system, so boom, they're done. This unit is going to have to move if they want to attack the mortars. Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, they only had 1 attack. So we're going to activate them. Let me roll and see if they activate. I might have forgot to roll for them. Okay, so they activate. If I had forgotten to roll for them, I rolled for them now. They did. I don't mind going reversing steps. So if I had failed the activation, I would have been happy to take this off because technically that would not have happened. But here's something. If you fail to activate on your roll and you don't spin a directive marker, the little activation symbol comes off and you're free to attempt to activate them again later. But so far I don't think that's been a problem. So I'm going to activate this guy on a roll of 3 or higher. He rolled a 3. So I'm going to move him up. And he gets to attack. And he hits on an 8+. We rolled an 11. They are not in any kind of terrain which will offer a save. And they don't have a save symbol on their card. So they're wiped out. Now I can advance because we're not adjacent, and because I did take them out, I can actually move forward to take advantage of that. And I'm going to flip them to activated. Then I can also activate the mortar platoon. So they're going to move up and take the town and get activated. And because their special thing is it can't move and fire, that's all the Americans. So now the German guy fighting to the very end, he's going to get activated with a token. It's activated unit. He's got nobody to... Oh, you know, he can't even attack. So that's it. That's it. That's it. Okay, so game over. Again, real basic. We're not playing with any reserve cards yet. Just still trying to get a feel for the flow of the game. I think that's pretty much it. Other than, like I said, making sure I confirm and double check how initiative works. I just need to open the book and read it real quick, or hit Board Game Geek and ask. But other than that, the game plays pretty easy. The only thing is, it doesn't feel like Platoons. It just feels like any game ever, as far as like squad level. You know, a lot of games you hit a unit once, you flip it over, and it can take a second hit. So it really doesn't feel any different than like a squad level game, except I'm supposedly playing with platoons. So there's nothing that gives you a sense of a lot of people, and nothing that gives you a feeling of degradation of combat. I mean, even suppression, I tried to read it with you guys on the camera, and it just said if they're suppressed, they can't use a directive marker. So even taking some suppression or loss of a hit point, they still attack at full strength. So there's really nothing that gives you a sense of resiliency or that feeling of anything. It's just you're just moving these cards. But I will say this though, it's a card game, but I like the fact that it's a tactical card game. So I'm actually moving these things on a map. I have not played a tactical card game before where you move stuff on a map. So this is new to me. So it doesn't feel like a card game. It feels like a board game, which I think is great. The boxes and expansions you get come with the same cards. So it's not a collectible game. You're going to get a certain amount of units, just like you would a board game. The only thing that this does differently than a board game is after you have your reserve deck, you shuffle the reserve deck up. So when you buy those 3 cards, it doesn't let you know what you're getting. It just says you draw 3 cards. Now, if you're that kind of word-specific person, specifically it says, let me tell you, the player, it actually says, take the top 3 cards from their deck of cards. Good, because my first thought was, how many people are going to say take 3 cards and take that to mean look through my deck and pick any 3 cards? But luckily it does say take the top 3 cards. So that's the only thing that reminds me of a card game in general, is that little bit of luck as to what 3 cards are you going to draw from the reserve deck. Otherwise, it's a completely board game. But even with that drawing 3 cards from the reserve deck, I still think that even fits the theme, because sometimes you might request reinforcements, but you don't always know what help is arriving or when they arrive. So you might really be waiting on a particular infantry unit or tank unit to draw from that reserve deck, and just like a real-life commander, you don't know when those tanks are going to arrive to relieve your infantry unit in Bastogne. So overall, I think the mechanics are pretty sound. Like I said, the only thing is the units don't feel like platoons. The game, if you told me this was a squad level game, I would believe you. If you told me this was like a person versus person game, I'd believe you, because that would mean some people had 1 hit point, some people had 2 hit points. So there's nothing that makes me feel like these are large groups of people and equipment moving around. So I'm not going to say it's bad, I'm just saying I'm not feeling it. But otherwise, I think this is a solid game. Beer and pretzel level. If you said, would this be good to introduce people to gaming, I would say wholeheartedly yes. I'm going to play this with my kid. I think he's going to enjoy it. If you have friends that don't play much, but you want to get someone in, this is it. I think this would be good. If you like cards, then this is perfect too, because it's a card game. Although, if you're a card sleever, well, good luck finding square sleeves. I haven't seen it yet. Now, there are some other things we didn't do. Other than the reserve deck, we didn't play with the units hidden. So that is something just to share, and I think this is probably where I'll part thoughts. It does have rules for where you deploy. If you're not adjacent to an enemy, or you're deployed to like a forest or something like with cover, you can come on the board hidden. And some of your cards actually are dummy units. So what's nice is they activate on a 4, which is listed right there, and they have a saving throw of 6. So if you shoot at this card, there's a chance that you might not do any damage, and it actually could be a unit. So they said in the book, a trick you could do is, let's say you have this Osttruppen guy. He activates on a 5. So if he comes onto the field hidden, what you might want to do is make his activation roll first, which he activates on a 3. This guy activates on a 4 for some reason, but he activates on a 3. So I could actually move him and then reveal him to make his attack. So what you might want to do is, before you reveal him and move an attack, is activate him while he's hidden. So that was a nice little tip in the book. So yeah, this does have hidden movement. So maybe the second to last, the post script. Is this game solo playable? Yes. You could solo play it, and then the hidden rules would be optional for you if you thought that would give you some added benefit to play solo. Otherwise, you could play the game entirely with the cards face up, and then it's just like any other game that you play both sides for yourself. There's no solo system that I've seen yet, but could you play? Yeah, sure. People play Combat Commander solo, and that's the card game of card games for a lot of people. So, this is solo playable. Anyway, I'm sure this is getting long. Yeah, 43 minutes. I hope you found this of use. You can leave some feedback if you want to see more. I will be more than happy to play more of this. It's a good enough game that I could play more. Plus, I know this camera is zoomed out because I wanted you to see the whole board and then some stuff off to the side. But the artwork on these is pretty good. So at least when you're playing, it's thematic. Just this is the only way that I know it's really a platoon level, because it has a bunch of people running around versus, say, a squad. It's just man. I don't know why that bothers me, but anyway, postscript. I just wish there was something that made it feel a little more resilient, so I really felt like it was a platoon. Okay, that's it. I'm going to shut it all down. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.